As I keep saying in these Bible studies, we are heading very quickly towards the end of this church age, and things are happening very quickly all around us. Events that are taking place around us are pointing to this great fact that the end of the church age is at hand. That means the rapture of the church is at hand. And that also means that the tribulation is going to begin and the Antichrist is going to come on the world stage. And all this is happening very quickly. And in connection to these events that herald, right, the coming of the Antichrist, are events that are taking place right before our eyes. And at the center of these events is Israel. And the country that is most connected to the nation of Israel is the United States of America. So as I've said in the previous Bible studies, America may not be mentioned by name in the Bible, but it is there. In type, certainly you find it in the book of Daniel. And you might also find it in other parts of Bible prophecy if the Lord reveals it to you, because the Bible does have a lot to say about the last days. Now, of course, the Bible doesn't have much to say about prophetic events in the church age as such, because it always talks about the tribulation. But the things that are going to happen in the tribulation are beginning to happen in our lifetime. That means we are looking at the shadow of the things that are to come. That means we are very close to the rapture. That means America certainly will have an important role to play in the tribulation because of the important role it has today in these last days on the world scene. There is, of course, the possibility that America will cease to be a superpower consequence in the tribulation. That also is possible. But I think that the Bible does say enough for us to connect the dots and to come to certain conclusions about certain nations like America, Russia, China, right? These are things that we can understand but when we understand Bible prophecy. So we have been talking about Donald Trump. Now I want to say this before I move forward. I don't hate Donald Trump, right? In fact, as I've said, I prayed that if it's the Lord's will, he would come to power because he's the only man who had the courage to say the things that he said. But at the same time, as I've said in the previous Bible study, just because a man says something does not mean that we blindly believe everything. If he does what he says, praise God. That means he is truly going to be a great blessing to the United States of America. But you see, the thing that I want to say is that I'm not against Trump, right? I'm not against him. I really hope and pray that he will do what he has promised to do, because that's going to be a great blessing to America. And if it's going to be a great blessing to America, it's going to be a blessing to Israel as well as to the rest of the world, right? It's not just America that's going to be blessed. Many nations of the earth would be blessed if he keeps his word. So let's pray about it. But at the same time, I cannot desist from showing you the facts. I'm not saying he's evil. I'm not saying he is wicked. Yes, I did say that I do not know if he's saved. All right? Neither do you. Okay, those of you who say he's saved, you don't know that. So I didn't say he's not saved. I said he's probably not saved. Maybe he's not saved. Because it looks like that, but I could be wrong. And I hope I'm wrong. So you should pray that if he's not saved, he would get saved, because that's most important. More important than anything else. His soul is important. So I'm not against him, but at the same time, I'm going to present some facts, some glaring facts about this man, because you cannot overlook them. You cannot. Now, let me tell you this, even if he is a very genuine man, which I tend to believe, right, to some extent that he is genuine, that he's not lying. So even if he is, the problem is not him. The problem is others. You cannot overlook the fact that the people that surround him, they may be good. Again, we don't know. I'm not saying they are evil. But some things about them stand out, and those things are not good. So, well, if God so desires, wills, in spite of these people's backgrounds, God can use them to be a blessing. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, the devil can use those backgrounds, you see. And one of the main things that you must be wary of in whoever it is the Jesuit connection. This is the most dangerous thing. If any man is connected to the Roman Catholic Church, any woman is connected to the Roman Catholic Church, that should immediately raise a red flag in your minds. And be cautious. I'm not saying you write them off as evil just because they have some connection to the church, but just as God can use these people, if they are not careful, if they are not sincere and truthful, the devil can use them as well. Right? So you should never forget that. Never forget that. So we are putting forward some facts and trying to examine these facts about some of these people. Why? Because these things will affect not just America. Right? I'm not an American for me to be so concerned about what happens there. What concerns me is the America-Israel connection. That's where I'm interested the most, because that's going to affect Israel. That's why. Now, there are a couple of passages that I would like to read before we move forward, because though the title of this Bible study is, Trump, America, and the last days, the thing behind these things is the Roman Catholic Church. If you overlook the long arm of the wicked so-called church, you will never learn the truth about the last days and Bible prophecy. All right, so I'm going to read a passage that is very familiar. Look at Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17. I'm going to read verses 1 through 6. Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 through 6. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So, we have here a description of the Roman Catholic Church. Really, nobody can dispute that. Right? Some people have said, well, Mystery Babylon is a reference to America. You can make a case for that, but I do not think that's what the Bible is talking about. This is talking about the Roman Catholic Church, because you don't find in America the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. You don't find it. You find it in Rome. And I'm not talking about Rome or the Roman Empire. I'm talking about the Roman Catholic Church, which is behind, right, everything. Yes, in these last days, America is a superpower, right? It's a regional power, you could say, in the Middle East. And it has been the most powerful country for the last at least 50 to 100 years. So that is true. But this description that is given in Revelation 17, I don't think would be a direct application to the United States of America. It cannot be. But having said that, as I'm going to talk about in the next Bible study, I'm going to talk about how the Catholic Church, and especially the Jesuits, have a plan to use the United States of America to bring in a new world order, right? That would be a one world government, a one world economy, and a one world religion under the Antichrist. Why would the Catholic Church use America? Because it's the greatest nation on the earth today. It's the most powerful nation At least it used to be, and maybe it could be once again under Donald Trump. It was the most wealthiest nation on earth. It could be once again, right? That's one of his points in his agenda, to make America wealthy again. So that's why the devil would look at the United States of America. Moreover, look at this. It says, this whore sitteth upon many waters. That means upon peoples and nations, as the Bible interprets itself. The people and the nations of this world, it sits upon that. That means it's there everywhere. Its tentacles spread to every nook and corner of this earth. The second thing is, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. It rules over the kings of the earth, right? It rules over the kings of the earth. In verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. It has the nations of the earth and its kings under its control through the United Nations and through various other organizations, right? Like you have the World Economic Forum and organizations like that, World Health Organization. All these are used by the woman to keep the kings and nations under her control. If you don't know it, you should read, you should study, you should research and see. There are many books. Many books. I would recommend especially the reading of a book called Vatican Assassins by Eric John Phelps, an American patriot, right? He's a Calvinist. Doctrinally, he's not sound, but he knows his history and he knows how to research into these things. And he's written a book, I think it's around 1,800 pages, documenting how the Vatican, the Catholic Church, and especially the Jesuits are behind all major world events. And he's also released about 13 books, which he calls the suppressed documents. They were suppressed by the Roman Catholic Church. And these 13 documents are 13 books written by various people many years ago, more than, I think at least 50, 60 years ago, some of them more than 100 years ago. People like Chineke, right? And he's called the American Martin Luther, by the way. These were men and women who were part of the Jesuit order. They came out and they exposed the Jesuit order for many years now, for more than 100 years. And you will be shocked at some of the things that you would learn. So the Catholic Church is that woman which not only sitteth upon many waters, but reigneth over the kings of the earth. It's got control over the nations, and it is able to do things which you cannot imagine. So that's why I said that America would be an instrument in the hands of the Catholic Church to move the whole world towards subjection to the Antichrist. Now, if you read in the book of Revelation, chapter 17, you will read that the 10 kings and the Antichrist destroy this woman in the tribulation. Why is that? The Bible, it doesn't tell us why, but it's most probably because of what the Catholic Church wants for itself. It wants absolute subjection of the nations and the rulers to the Pope. The Society of Jesus that we call the Jesuits is a military order. Everybody knows it. It's not a secret. It's a military order. It came out of the Reformation. It is the counter-Reformation movement of the Roman Catholic Church, right? Martin Luther and the other reformers started the Reformation, and to counter the Reformation, the Jesuit order came into existence under Ignatius Loyola in the same century that the Reformation took place, the 16th century. So this is an order that has been established with one goal: to bring the world to the feet of the Pope. It is so powerful that even the Pope is subject to the Jesuit general, right? The Jesuit general, the head of the Jesuit order, is the father confessor of the Pope. That means the Pope goes, kneels down before him and confesses his sins to the Jesuit general. You know that the confession system has been established by the Catholic Church. It comes from the Babylonian mystery religion of Nimrod and Semiramis, it's been brought over into the Catholic Church to control people. If I know your secrets, I can control you. That's what they do. And can you imagine, the Jesuit general is the father confessor of the Catholic Church. Of the Pope of the Catholic Church. The Pope. He is a puppet in the hands of the Jesuits. I think in the 17th or 18th century, one of the popes had given a decree abolishing the Jesuit order. You know what they did? They brought him into subjection. They poisoned him. They poisoned him. They poisoned and killed popes, like they did many presidents, as we are going to talk about. They are behind all these things. And they control the Pope, though outside they say we bring the whole world to the feet of the Pope. That's because they believe that one day the final Pope will be the ruler of the whole world. That's why they want to bring the whole world to the feet of the Pope. It's like they want to do it now so that when the final Pope comes, everything is in place and the world is under his feet. So they don't love or respect the popes that are there now. By the way, the Pope today, Pope Francis, is a Jesuit. First time in history, a Jesuit Pope came into power. You think that's coincidence? I don't think so. They brought him so that now they can do things more openly within the Catholic Church and bring the whole church into subjection so that there won't be any opposition to what they do. That's why they waited. They could have put their own Pope hundreds of years ago, but they didn't. But now they do it, right? They are masters of deception, the Jesuits. Everybody knows that. They are masters of deception. And unless we understand that, we will not understand why we are looking at Donald Trump. Because if he is not careful, this church can manipulate him very easily through the people that are around him. Right? So far, everything seems fantastic, right? He is going full force ahead, trying to keep his word. And we greatly appreciate that. Right? It takes a real man to do what he said he'll do, and he started doing those things already. He started appointing people, right, in all those various positions to implement his agenda, which is to make America great again. It's wonderful. But these people know how to deal with men like Trump. And if he's not careful, they can manipulate him just like this. And if they cannot manipulate him, you know what they can do. And we will talk about that if we have the time today. Now look at this. I want you to understand something. There are two ways in which we look at Donald Trump. There are two ways. One is, what will he do for the United States of America? When I talk negatively about Trump, people who have voted for him, people who believe that he's going to do what he said he'll do, get offended because they think I'm saying that he won't do what he said he'll do for America. That's not my concern at all, really. That's for citizens of America to be concerned about. He very well may do everything that he promised to do for America, right? Some of those things like abortion laws and immigration laws and this thing to do with homosexuality and a lot of other things, right? To do with health, to do with the economy of America. Wonderful things have been planned, and I hope and pray that he does all those things. That's one way to look at Trump. Now, that's not my focus at all. The other way to look at Trump is what he will do with the Middle East, right? What he will do with the Middle East. How will his relationship with Israel be? Will it be the same as before, or will it change? That's what I'm interested in, because this has prophetic implications, as I've told you. What Trump will do with Israel has prophetic implications. And I'm telling you, even if all his motives are pure and he does a wonderful job, the Catholic Church is not going to keep quiet. They're going to try to do everything they can to derail his plans and to destroy his presidency. They'll do everything they can. If they cannot control him, they will destroy him. That's how they have always operated. Of course, I'm not taking God out of the equation here, right? We don't know exactly what God is doing. Even though we study Bible prophecy, these details we cannot ascertain. Maybe somebody else can, I cannot. Right? So I don't know what God is doing. Will God allow the Catholic Church to do these things? Well, if the tribulation and the horrors of the tribulation have to come to pass, then certain things have to be put in place. And unless the Catholic Church has a free hand, it cannot do it. But on the other hand, like one of my good friends has taught in one of his Bible studies, he believes that there is a possibility, all right, he also doesn't say this is exactly how it's going to be, but he says there's a possibility that just before the rapture, during the presidency of Donald Trump, God's going to bless America and the whole world one last time before the church is raptured. So there's going to be a period of prosperity, great prosperity. And of course, he says the reason why he says that is because in Revelation chapter 3, you have the Laodicean church. And the Laodicean church is known for its wealth. It's rich, increased with goods, right? So he says that's because probably that prosperity will come just before the rapture of the church. It's possible. Again, I don't know the finer details of God's plan. I know what the Bible says, up to a point. I know where it's headed, what direction it's headed. I know what's going to come. But how it's going to happen, I do not know. And my understanding of the scriptures tell me that things have to go south from here onwards. It's difficult to think that things are going to get better. Maybe for America as a nation, things may get better. But for the world as a whole, I cannot believe that everything's going to become wonderful before the rapture of the church. I don't believe that. Remember when the children of Israel were brought out of Egypt, right, and God took them out, Pharaoh and his armies followed them. They followed them. They didn't let them go so easily. That's how it's going to be with the church. The devil's not going to keep quiet. You see, he's not going to say, okay, I'm just going to wait till these people get out of my way. No. He's going to do everything he can to make our lives difficult, as he's been doing for thousands of years now. So what I'm interested in is what Trump will do with Israel, because that has prophetic implications. Now, in relation to America, what can he do? Well, he can keep his word, and that's going to be beyond imagination for America. It's going to become really great if everything he has planned works as he has planned. It's going to be wonderful. Another possibility, all right, this is only a possibility. Listen carefully. He may not keep his word. Then it's going to be horrible for America if he doesn't keep his word. He may break his word. Now, there are a couple of other possibilities. One of those is that they may take him out of the way. If he really keeps his word, they may, if God allows it. I don't know if God's going to allow it or not, but if he allows it, they'll certainly take him out of the way, right? Like I've said previously, they have an agenda for the United States. They're not going to keep quiet if somebody comes and puts a wrench in their plans, right? They're not going to keep quiet. They're going to try everything. Unless God stops it, right, they can do a lot of damage. And the last possibility is that there may be, as many Bible teachers believe, a civil war in America. A civil war may break out within America. Already you see the division, right? The division there is in America. It's very clear for the whole world to see. So people are saying we are leaving America. Some are saying we won't get married till this man goes out of power. A lot of division between these two groups. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. And the Catholic Church, the Jesuits are masters at igniting hatred and war between people of the same country. They are masters at it, as history tells us. At the same time, while there is a civil war and America is weakened by it, there is a possibility, like again many Bible teachers believe, there is a possibility that Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Turkey, these kind of nations could attack America. So there'll be war. These are possibilities. All right, if you don't know the meaning of the word possibilities, go check it out in the dictionary. I'm not teaching this as Bible doctrine. So, before I move on and talk about the role of America and how the Jesuits have been using America and how they will use America in the future, there is something that I'm going to say about Donald Trump. All right, again, it's only an observation. All right, it's only an observation. I'm not saying he's evil, and I certainly do not believe that he's the Antichrist. I do not believe it. Right? Do we see in him some of those qualities which the Antichrist may have? Certainly they are there in everybody. Because he's a world figure, you can see it more in him. So yes, you do. But I don't believe he's the Antichrist. Right? But there is something about him that struck me. And I'm going to put it before you. Right? Take it or leave it. That what happened with Trump is a very good picture, a picture of what's going to happen in the tribulation. What is that? Donald Trump in his first term came bringing peace to America, right? What does the Antichrist do? He comes bringing peace in his first term. That's the first 3.5 years. Then what happens to the Antichrist? He is killed by a head wound. Donald Trump, after his first term, was shot. And you could say it's almost like a head wound. It hit its ear. If he had turned, it would have hit his head. Again, I do not believe he's the Antichrist. Don't go and say I'm saying he's the Antichrist. It looks like a picture of what's going to happen with the Antichrist in the future. So it's like he got his life back, really, right? An assassination attempt, he survived it. In Revelation chapter 13 and verse 3, we see exactly that happening to the Antichrist. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So there it fits again. He came bringing peace, right? Just like the Antichrist does. Antichrist is shot or killed with a head wound, and he comes back to life. And the second term of the Antichrist is the Great Tribulation. A reign of terror is going to be unleashed by the Antichrist in the second half of the tribulation. Now, Donald Trump has come back to power, right? And this time he has come back with more vigor than he ever had before. I'm not saying he has come back with hatred like the Antichrist is going to come back, but he's come back with more force than before, with more power than before. And so all that is a good picture of what's going to happen in the future. Again, he's not the Antichrist, but this is a good picture of what's going to happen in the future. Now, I'm going to say that when I did this study the last time, right, on Donald Trump, 99.9% of the people wrote agreeing that, from America, I'm not talking about Indians or people from other countries, I'm talking about Americans, wrote saying that it's true that even they find all this to be very difficult to digest. Many of them have written, oh, he is the beast, he is the Antichrist. No, I don't believe that, right? I don't. If he does what he promised to do, he'll be the greatest president of the United States of America, probably the greatest leader this world has ever known, really, because this man's principles and his policies, they are biblical, really. They are biblical. And those who hate his policies don't know the Bible. So the question is, will he be able to put them into practice or not? Well, only time will tell. We have to wait and see. While all this is true, there is another thing that we have to take into consideration. And that is what the United Nations, what Klaus Schwab, right? He is the head of the World Monetary Fund, I guess. What was that? I forget. Klaus Schwab. You know, he's the guy who's come with this great reset thing, right, for the world. And then you have in America the Center for Foreign Relations, right? A CFR as it's called. All these organizations, CFR is totally in and out controlled by the Jesuits, just as your CIA is controlled by the Jesuits, right? So these people have a plan and an agenda of their own. In fact, they call it Agenda 2030. Recently, in the month of September, the United Nations had a UN summit called the Pact for the Future. A Pact for the Future. Now, this is too vast a subject for me to go into the details. I've done many Bible studies on the Great Reset. You can go and check it out and you will understand what I'm saying if you don't know what I'm saying now. But, you know, if you go to the United Nations website and look at the summary of this Pact for the Future, what happened, what the speakers have said, what agreements were reached and all that. You know, I studied the whole thing many weeks ago or maybe months ago and summarized everything into 3 specific points. What they have agreed on, among many things, the most important things that they have agreed on point to 3 things. One is a one world government. The second one is a one world economy. And the third one is a one world religion. I mean, the things that they have agreed upon lead to these 3 things. One world government, one world economy, one world religion. A new world order, like you read on your dollar bill, right? If you're an American. One world order, or new world order. It's written in Latin. So they have a plan of their own. Remember, the United Nations, the CFR, as I've said, and the International Monetary Fund, all these are controlled, totally controlled by the Jesuits. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. This is not a guess. This is not an assumption. We have hard facts to prove that. All right, so they are controlled by the Jesuits. And their plan is to bring in the Antichrist, the new world order. Now, Donald Trump is certainly against these globalists, against the deep state, right? That means he's against the Jesuits. Or he doesn't know that the Jesuits are behind the deep state and the globalists and the elite, whatever you call them. Maybe he doesn't know. But he certainly is against the agendas of the United Nations, because the United Nations wants to bring every nation under its control. And Trump is against it. He's against it. So ultimately, right, I do not know if this is going to happen during his tenure as president or maybe after he finishes his tenure. I don't know. But whenever that may be, this agenda of the globalists will come to pass. They will implement it. Nobody can stop it. Right? Nobody. Maybe Trump will stop it for 4 years if he's very strong. But after that, he will be gone and nobody else would be able to stop it. It's going to happen for sure. And America has to come to its knees before this great global power. It has to come to its knees, if not now, later on. Right? So if he's able to stop them, well, their plans would be delayed for a little bit. But if he's not able to stop them one way or the other, then in our lifetime, we're going to see their plan put into action. If he gets trapped by these people, right, pray that he doesn't get trapped by these people. He doesn't get eliminated by these people, because if they succeed, it's game over for the United States. It's game over completely. But you see, the thing is, these people already have total control of the United States. I'm not saying they have control of the people of the United States. Right? At least half the nation is not under their control. Maybe the other half is, right? Because you see all this nonsense among those who are against Trump, right? They're against what the Bible says most of the time. So they probably are under the control of those people, but the other half are not. But I'm talking about the system that is in place in America, the government, excluding Trump, okay? I'm not saying he's under their control, but apart from them, the government organizations, the judicial system, all these things are under their control. The financial department is under their control, totally under their control. How? Through the CIA, as I've said before, through the CFR, the Council for Foreign Relations, the FBI, the Justice Department, many politicians, most politicians, I would say, all of them and all of these things are controlled by the Jesuits. All right, so let me talk about that quickly. Why I say this. Let's begin with Washington, D.C. I'm talking about the Jesuit plan for America. All right, so Washington, D.C., right, is the capital of the United States. In Washington, D.C. or around, there is this place called Maryland. Right? That was one of the early choices for the seat of government, right? This is before, hundreds of years, I think in the 18th century, before America, I think, won its independence and became a nation. Before that, they considered Maryland, Michigan, Kentucky, Indiana, right? All these places were considered, but finally, it came to Maryland and was located on the banks of the Potomac. And if you look at what happened in those days, you would clearly see that right from the inception, the Jesuits started infiltrating. Where did they come first? They came to Maryland. That was their stronghold. Where was there in Washington, D.C., I think you have this Georgetown University. It was established by the Jesuits. In those days, when Washington, D.C. was just becoming the capital of America, that's when they established that university. Well, whether it did well or not is not the question. The question is their presence there. Their presence. Of course, 100 years later, almost, they again established in Washington this Catholic university, the Catholic University, which is very powerful, very, very powerful, which many Christians in America don't know about. So, they had, this whole place chosen out to be the seat of the government. So it was at that time, that Georgetown, where the university is, was a port of entry. It was a slave market in the United States. And later it was settled by the Jesuits. They came and settled down there. So the Jesuit College, Georgetown University, was established there. And they immediately saw the opportunity to take control of America with their presence there. They saw it. What do? You see, the Jesuits, as I've said, they are masters of deception. When necessary, they will say they are atheists. Otherwise, they'll say we are very pious Roman Catholics. Whatever the situation demands, they are like chameleons. They can change color according to the situation. Right? They can play the role of an infidel, an atheist, whatever you want. They may even attack Rome and the Catholic Church just for a show. They'll say, oh, this church is so evil. Deception, trickery, that's what they are experts at, right? So Jesuitism, it permits its votaries to do what pleases them, whatever they want. Submission to God is not at all in their creed. They don't believe in submission to God. In fact, they say, I am to obey my superiors. even if the voice of my superiors goes against the voice of God. If God says one thing and my superior says something else, I'm going to listen to my superior. They take an oath. They take an oath to do that. They're crazy. They're brainwashed. In fact, you know, the founder of the Jesuit order was Ignatius Loyola. He had formulated something called the spiritual exercises. Every Jesuit, before he is, he's taken into the order, has to go through those spiritual exercises. It's a mechanism designed to make a person demon-possessed. Ignatius Loyola was a demon-possessed fellow. And he made up this system that these people have to go through, and if they go through it, they get demon-possessed, right? So, they don't believe in God, they just, believe in obeying their superiors. They are brainwashed in those spiritual exercises to do that. They pick people with talent, people who are good with trickery, people who are cunning, who are subtle, right? And all these things. They indulge in falsehood, theft, murder, whatever is required. Nothing can stand in their way, right, in accomplishing their goal. And I already told you that their goal is to bring the whole world to the feet of the Pope, so that when the Antichrist comes, everything will be in place. Jesuitism has been banned from every nation in Europe, right? It had been banned in every nation in Europe at some point or the other, if you read history. Even Roman Catholic nations banned the Jesuit order from their countries. They kicked them out from their countries. In fact, and of course, for doing that, they never forgive a nation. They always take revenge. They make sure that, that nation suffers for expelling them from that nation. They have always done that. Study history, you'll know it. You don't read it in your school and college textbooks. None of these things are written because education is completely controlled by the Jesuits, as I'm going to show you, especially in the United States of America. And of course, every time they are kicked out of a country, they make inroads again through other ways. They don't quit. These people never quit. They have never quit in these last 500 years or 400 change years. They've never quit. Even when the Catholic Church itself banned this order, they did not quit. You know what they did? They went and established themselves in Russia till they could twist the Pope's hand into reinstating them once again. And that happened. And then once again, they came out openly. But for some reason, the United States of America has never banned the Jesuits. What does that tell you? I'm telling you that Roman Catholic nations have banned them and expelled them from their countries, literally expelled them, kicked them out. They said no Jesuit priest should remain in our nation. They took over their properties. That's the extent to which some nations went. Read what kings and rulers have said about the Jesuit order, right, in Europe in the last 400 years. But in America, they never kicked them out. Never. It found a safe haven in America. It established itself in America. It entered Washington, right? And the college, of course, Georgetown University, was regarded in those days as a Jesuit nest. As a Jesuit nest. Nobody from the north bothered about it. Nobody from the south of America bothered about the Jesuits there. After the Jesuits came, then came the convents of the sisters, the nuns. You see how they infiltrated. They first came, saying that, oh, we just come peacefully to preach the gospel. And they settled themselves there in Washington. I don't know the exact place where they were, but somewhere in Washington, D.C. Then they established this university. Then they brought the nuns. And what do the nuns do? they act as nurses, right? There was war in the days of George Washington. There was war with England, the War of Independence, and soldiers were getting wounded, and somebody had to take care of them. And these nuns came and said, we will take care of them. Who's going to say no at such a time? They allowed them. So slowly hospitals started cropping up everywhere. Jesuit-controlled hospitals. And of course, they take very good care of the soldiers. They give them free treatment and things like that. So they become strong there. They become strong. So there was this hospital called the Providence Hospital. What a nice name, Providence, right? It was founded in 1802. That was in the midst of the war. The nuns came to help the wounded, and they loved them, and they became very strong there. You see, Rome builds her walls in troublous times. That's a truth. It starts a war and then makes itself strong in that nation through that war. It fights on both sides. By the way, Jesuits will be on both sides of the war. In one nation, right, it's the Jesuits who instigate the war against the other nation. Again, there also, it's the Jesuits who instigate the war. They make these nations fight against each other to bring them under their control. So it was during the war that she appeared in the United States. Of course, it's a traitor to the United States, right? It's a traitor to liberty itself. It got a foothold there in America, and now it's impossible to dislodge her, right, the Catholic Church, from the United States. The Catholic Church came in stealthily, right? That's again another trait of the Jesuits, stealth. They are masters of it. They came unobtrusively. They don't come barging in, right? They come in very subtly. They come as helpers, right? We are here to help you, whatever you need. We are there to, give you what you need. Flattery. You make use of all these things. Especially women. They are masters at making use of women to further their plans and purposes. So it's like the serpent came and has entwined its folds about the Capitol. And the Lord willing, I will talk about this maybe in another Bible study. But if you look at Washington, D.C., right, how it is laid out, the architecture of the buildings there, and the presence of Freemasonry there. And of course, you have that great obelisk in front of the Capitol building, right, where the presidents take oath facing that. So you have everything in place. How did all this happen? How did this happen? Who's behind it? Right? We'll talk about it, the Lord willing. I don't know, because most people think these are conspiracy theories. These are not theories. It is conspiracy, but it's not conspiracy theory. It's the conspiracy of the Jesuits that Christians must be aware of. Right? Christians must be aware of these things. So what did they do? You know what they do is they increase in number, right? Population-wise, just like the Muslims. They increase in number, and then they try to get hold of the public school system. They isolate it. They start their own schools. And they come to a point where they are in control of the entire education system. The Jesuits are masters at it. They get the Bible out of the schools, right? And then what they do is they take control of the school system. I'll tell you something. If not under the rule of Donald Trump, maybe after, America can actually set up an inquisition before the rapture in America. They can set up the Inquisition right there in America. And you should read this book written by a man named Justin Fulton. Justin Fulton, right? The book that he has written is called Washington in the Lap of Rome. Washington in the Lap of Rome. He's written it in 1888. You should read it. He was there when these things were happening. You will find it on Kindle, or you can buy a physical copy as well. So these are some of the things that he has described in his book. And you can read many other books on this subject. There are authors, American authors, who have researched and have written books on the subject of the Jesuit connection to Washington, D.C. The Jesuits, by the way, the highest order, not the lower order, but the highest order of the Jesuits, in them they have again various degrees. The highest degree Jesuits are devil worshippers. They practice all sorts of occult, black magic. And you see that in Freemasonry, because Freemasonry is completely controlled by the Jesuits. And you see it in Washington, D.C., like I've said, in the architecture of the Capitol building, for example. Did you even know what is there inside? What is painted there on the walls, on the ceilings? The structure, right? The design, what it means, why that obelisk is there right opposite it, why there is a stream of water before it, what it represents. If you come to India, you will see it in every Shiva temple. Exactly the same. It's a phallic symbol. It's a phallic symbol facing the womb of the Virgin. And I won't get into the details because it's not very nice. But I know what it means because we find it here in our temples. I know what it means. It's occult, totally occult. And some of the details, if you hear, you'll be shocked. And these are facts, by the way. These are not guesses or assumptions. These are facts for anybody to verify. It's out there. So they took hold of Washington, D.C. That means they took hold of the government of America. It's under their control. Now Trump has come. He's going to go against them. If he does, praise God. He's going to, at least for 4 years, break the iron grip of the Jesuits over Washington, D.C., at least the government. Right? Who rules America? Again, I'm not talking about Trump, but at other times, who rules America? It's the Jesuits. It's the Archbishop of New York who rules America from his diocese in New York. If you don't know it, being an American, you should do your own study, because from there he rules not only America, but the whole world. The whole world. Under the Archbishop of New York, you have all the orders of the Catholic Church, right? The Knights of Columbus, the Knights of Malta, right? You have the Knights of Columbus. What are the other ones? I forget, but there are so many. All these orders are under him. And the people who are members of those orders are the ones in government positions in America. And for them, loyalty to their archbishop and to their pope is the primary goal of their lives. They won't die for their country. They'll die for the pope. And they're Americans. Right? So I know this might come as a shock for some of you, but this is the truth. The United States was originally planned to be the new Atlantis of Francis Bacon, the new Atlantis of the world, right? If you know about the old Atlantis, that was a very powerful, prosperous nation under the gods, fallen angels, and their descendants. So it was made to be a kind of a utopia, right? By the Rosicrucians. Again, they're controlled by the Jesuits, right? Freemasonry in all its forms is controlled by the Jesuits. Washington, D.C. was laid out, as they say, according to the precepts of sacred geometry. It was laid out according to the principles or precepts of sacred geometry associated with Freemasonry. The purpose, again, was to make America the new Atlantis. But of course, God didn't allow their plans to succeed. They fought, but God didn't allow them to fully succeed. God made America very great and blessed it and made it a blessing to many nations. So pray that's what God's going to do now in the time of Donald Trump. But you see this, that was their original plan, to make America the new Atlantis. That's why they made sure that the heart of America, Washington, D.C., was completely according to their plan. Even the architecture was according to their plan. Now, what did they do to further their purpose in America? Now, I won't again talk about the original founding fathers of America like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and those others with them, right? I won't talk about them. You can go and do a study of your own and see if they were born-again Christians or not, or were they forced because of the born-again Christian population to put in place a Christian system. You do a study of your own and you can come to your own conclusion. But you see, the Jesuits, in order to further their purpose and plan, they even go to the extent of assassinating leaders. They have done it many times in history. I would say hundreds of times. I'll give you just a few examples. Oliver Cromwell of England, right? He fought against the Catholic-controlled king, the monarchy. He was the savior of the Reformation as far as England was concerned. He was killed by the Jesuits. Then you have the King of France, Henry IV, taken out by the Jesuits. Even in Russia, you have Peter the Great, the Tsar of Russia, taken out. Tsar Alexander I and Tsar Alexander II, taken out in Russia. Italy's King Victor Emmanuel II, taken out. King Umberto, taken out in Italy. Mexico's President Benito Juarez, taken out by these people, out of the scene. But when you come to America, you have two prominent people which you all know about. Abraham Lincoln and JFK, John F. Kennedy. Both of them assassinated, right? Abraham Lincoln in the 1800s and JFK in 1963, I guess. I think his anniversary is coming up, his death anniversary on the 22nd of November, this month. Who took them out, right? Oh, they say it's a big mystery. Nobody knows. Oh, it's a conspiracy theory. No, nothing is mysterious. Nothing is hidden. Everything is plain to see for those who have eyes to see. Who took them out? You know, Abraham Lincoln was made aware during the time of his campaigning, during the time of his presidency, right, during his first term of presidency. He learned a lot about the Jesuits. Till then, he was ignorant. He didn't know much about them and the Catholic Church. But there were good people around him who educated him about the evil that the Jesuit order is. And he understood it. And because of some of the decisions that he made, they told him that you will be the target of the Jesuits. They will kill you. They told him that. And in his own research, he found out that it's true that, you know, there will be an attempt on his life. In fact, when he won the second term, I guess, he took a train from wherever he was to reach Washington, D.C. I think it took him about 12 days. They were on high alert during his train journey. In fact, he came in so secretively into D.C. so to foil the plans of the people who planned to kill him. Unfortunately, 42 days after he became the president the second time, they took him out. They took him out. So during that time, he declared himself, right, in his own words, not to be in favor of unlimited toleration of Roman Catholics. He said this. He said, I'm not in favor of unlimited toleration of Roman Catholics. Well, he needed to learn a little bit more, unfortunately. There should be no toleration of this order He said, we won't unlimitedly tolerate the Catholic Church in America. He signed his death warrant when he said that. These are his words. Once I was, now it seems to me that sooner or later, the people will be forced to put a restriction to that clause of unlimited toleration toward papists. These are the words of Abraham Lincoln. I know that there's this whole thing about the North and the South, and for the Northern Americans, Abraham Lincoln was a great man. To some other people, he was not great, to do with the slavery thing. I have nothing to do with all that. I won't get into that. But I'm saying what the Jesuits have done. Now, these are the words of Abraham Lincoln. I am for liberty of conscience in its truest, noblest, broadest, highest sense. But I cannot give liberty of conscience to the Pope and his followers, the papists, so long as they tell me through their councils, theologians, and canon laws that their conscience orders them to burn my wife, strangle my children, and cut my throat when they find an opportunity. Can you believe this? These are the words of Abraham Lincoln. He said this, I'm not going to allow them to do as they please here on the shores of the United States of America. This does not seem to be understood by the people, Mr. Lincoln continued. Sooner or later, the light of common sense will make it clear to everyone that no liberty of conscience can be granted to men who are sworn to obey a pope who pretends to have the right to put to death those who differ from him in religion. He understood that the Pope is an evil beast. The Catholic Church is an evil system. The Jesuits were a wicked order of murderers. He understood that. Unfortunately, when he made this statement, right, he was signing his own death warrant because they never forgive. You know what's said about the Jesuits? They never forgive, they never forget. Like I told you, every nation that expelled them suffered the consequences. They make sure about that, right? For example, the Reformation started in Germany, right? I know I'm run out of time, I'll stop it. The Reformation started in Germany, and Martin Luther's preaching and teaching, especially his Bible, was, you know, like a wildfire in Germany that spread throughout Europe. And that really destroyed the power of the Roman Catholic Church. The Jesuits came into existence in the Counter-Reformation movement. What do? After more than 200-300 years, they never forget, they never forgive, remember. They made sure that hundreds of thousands of German Protestant young men died in the First and the Second World War. They make sure about that, you see. They punish a nation for going against them. They won't let them go. Abraham Lincoln said that, you know, he's not going to give them the liberty to kill people as they wish. I'm not going to allow it. So we know the story, right? Well, he was shot, but look at this. On the last day of his life on earth, he had written a letter to a friend of his that he was going to use precaution against the Catholic Church. Look at what he said. He said, the Jesuits are so expert in their deeds of blood that Henry IV said it was impossible to escape them, and he became their victim, though he did all he could to protect himself. Isn't it so sad? He was writing on the day that he was going to be assassinated to his friend. He says, King Henry IV did everything he could to protect himself from them, but he was killed by them. That's exactly what happened to Abraham Lincoln. Now, again, I won't go into all the details, but I'll just say a few things. That invitation, go to the theater to watch that show, From the beginning to the ending, in everything, it has been proven, though people don't believe it, that the Catholic Church was behind it. The main leaders of the Catholic Church were present in the house of a Roman Catholic man or woman, and they were all coming in and going out, very busy, for more than a month before his assassination. They were plotting there, they were planning there. People saw them come and go. All the highest leaders of the Jesuit order and the Catholic Church were there in the house of a Roman Catholic woman. And they invited him. And of course, the guy who assassinated him, he was recruited by the Jesuits. He was trained by the Jesuits. In fact, he was a drunkard, and in his drunken condition, many times he spilled the beans. He said to people, I've been trained to kill Lincoln, and I'm going to get him one of these days. He said it from his own mouth, right? I forget the name of this guy who killed him. I can't remember it, but yeah, John Wilkes Booth. He was recruited by the Roman Catholic Church, by the Jesuits. He was boasting in his drunken condition for many days before he killed him, right? He had united with the Catholic Church. He plotted the murder of the President of America with these Roman Catholic priests. And I think they killed him after that, right? Just like they did with the guy who tried to assassinate Trump and Kennedy. They killed him. So they took out Abraham Lincoln because he went against them. He openly went against the Jesuits, right? Everybody thinks, oh, the Southerners, they killed him. The Confederate states, they assassinated him because he went against them and freed the slaves. Now, I don't know the details about that. I know, but I don't want to talk about those details. But what I know for sure is that it's the Jesuits who were behind the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, because he was not going to allow their plans to succeed in America. And the Lord willing, in the next Bible study, I will talk in more detail than Abraham Lincoln about John F. Kennedy, because that was in more recent times. And we have far more information about what happened and why and who assassinated JFK. Why are we talking about this? If you think, I'm talking about the Jesuit control of America, how they took control of America, and how they removed people out of their way who did not allow their plans to succeed. They took out Abraham Lincoln, they took out JFK. There's no guarantee that they won't take out the man that we are talking about. They have the power to do it. Unless God intervenes, they will succeed. So that's why it's important that you pray, right? Because as I've said, what happens in America will affect the Middle East. And what happens in the Middle East is prophetic in nature. It's connected to the Bible. That's why we are interested in seeing what's happening in the United States of America. Again, I will talk a little bit more, as I've said, about this, then go into some other details about how the Jesuits control America, right? And talk about the occult nature of some of these things in Washington, D.C., and talk about some of their plans and how they put them into action, right? If you get the chance, read the writings of men like Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall was not a Christian. He was a Freemason, right? An occult, guy who was involved in the occult, very demonic, but he wrote extensively about the Freemasonic plan to rule America, to control America, what their plan is for America, and what he has written many, many years ago. You see some of those things happening today in America. That's why it's important to read some of these things just to understand what's happening. But now the thing is this. You see, we are coming very close to the church age, to the end of the church age. That means we are coming very close to the rapture of the church. Praise God that He will not allow us to see that extreme wickedness and evil that's going to be there on the earth in the tribulation. Thank God he's taking us out. But before he takes us out, as I've said, that we are going to see some things which would be shocking because we've never seen them before. Things that are hidden will come to light because the devil knows, right, that his time is coming to put his son on the throne to rule the world. He's not going to do things very secretly anymore. He's going to come out in the open too. So that's why it's important to study these things, to see what's happening around us. And I hope and pray that as you read and study the Bible, especially Bible prophecy, you would be able to connect those things with what's happening in the world today. Thank you very much for joining us for this Bible study. God bless you, and the Lord willing, we'll meet again in the next one. Thank you.